This is the first day since the beginning of the full-scale invasion. Welcome. I greet you. For the daily situation report, in today's report, we will look at mutual airstrikes. But we will also look at a series of truly, absolutely grotesque videos that were all released today. We'll also revisit the Russian army's logistics situation and more. While a ceasefire was being negotiated in the United Arab Emirates, the Kremlin almost simultaneously ordered a massive attack on Kiev. Russia practically used its entire available missile arsenal, including Iskander missiles and Zircon hypersonic missiles. And for the first time in large numbers, the little-known Kh-22, which is also known here as X-22, as I mentioned for the first time in my situation report about half a year ago. It was about the fact that the Russians are already converting old existing cruise missiles or anti-ship missiles and preparing them for use in Ukraine. According to Ukrainian sources, strategic bombers were used to drop the missiles and bombs, mainly to fire the Kh-22 and Kh-22 missiles at the capital. Nearly 400 different drones were also used. What stands out in particular is the increased use of the Kh-22, which, as mentioned, was hardly used at all in the past. We're also talking about its first use against a Ukrainian target. The missile is actually an anti-ship weapon and was designed as such, but now it's used beyond its original role as an aircraft carrier killer, as the Russians say, targeting ground targets and civilian infrastructure. This actually makes sense. Ukraine doesn't have any aircraft carriers or a truly seaworthy fleet. The flotillas currently in use mainly consist of drone swarms and are revolutionizing naval warfare. Of course, that makes it difficult for the Russians to hit such small targets with such large cruise missiles or anti-ship missiles. Naturally, it's simpler and more practical to adapt an anti-ship missile for ground targets, especially if it's already in the arsenal and unlikely to be used against larger ships. Attackers targeted energy facilities, leaving whole cities without power, water, and heat in temperatures as low as -20 degrees. Air defense is crucial for Ukraine. Interceptor missiles are expensive and only available in limited quantities. In the most recent attacks alone, missiles worth around $80 million were reportedly used to limit the damage. Not all were intercepted, and imagine this happening nightly. War is costly. Millions vanish quickly. But let's also take a look at Belgorod. What has been common in Ukraine for several years is now reflected in the Russian city of Belgorod. Let's listen in. Air raid sirens, drone explosions, a power plant struck, causing widespread outages. The governor of the region said a few days ago that residents should consider moving to another region of Russia, since the power outages can hardly be controlled anymore. Power outages were caused by Ukrainian drones at the regional thermal power plant, though this wasn't mentioned. But this is just a Russian region in Ukraine. It's a daily occurrence in several regions and many cities. Near Pokrovsk, the Russians were able to capture Shakov. That's the small settlement up here. Ukrainians liberated this place and nearby settlements, Volodymyrivka, Pankivka, and Mayak, about 6 months ago. The Ukrainians managed to liberate these areas but were gradually pushed back by the Russians, returning the situation to how it was before. That's the only territorial gain I can report today. However, I've now found a huge collection of grotesque videos from the past few hours. Stay tuned. Feel free to leave a free subscription if you haven't already. And then let's take a look. A Ukrainian police car is towing a Russian Shahed kamikaze drone like a sled. Of course, the explosive payload has already been removed, but it was still quite an interesting picture of the situation. It also shows the drone's material is sturdy if you can tow it without major chipping. I've been lucky enough to hold a piece of a real Garant 2, essentially Russia's version of the Shahed drone, and it's a kind of fiber composite material that seems to be quite sturdy and is actually very light. The thing felt like a piece of paper, but it was about 20 by 60 centimeters in size. If I recall, it's more a piece of cardboard than paper, though the same size. That was also a fairly comparable weight at Dobropilya, where the Russians continued their attack. Dobropilya is shown here on the map near Hujapole. The 110th Mechanized Brigade released a video about it. Check it out. I mean, you managed to camouflage the soldiers for the winter. That was almost impossible in recent years. But who, I mean, please, who comes up with the idea of loading 10 soldiers shoulder to shoulder onto an open truck bed when a single drone would be enough? With so many drones in the area, the show ended quickly. Even the driver and passenger had no roof over their heads. But this here looks like a jammer, basically for drone protection. We know that Russian jammers often don't work against drones. It's basically like a homeopathic jammer. Yeah, as you can see, it obviously didn't help at all. A drone also recorded the end of the attack, which occurred at the Red Pin. The year has just started, but I think I've already found the video of the year. A Russian soldier notices a Ukrainian drone in the sky. He doesn't have a weapon or any kind of body armor and is pulling supplies on a cart behind him to a position. So what should you do when you spot the drone? Well, he definitely decided to write the word loser in the dirt, walk a few meters further, and step on a mine. Some footage from the war could really be straight out of a wild fever dream. Especially, why doesn't he have a weapon with him or any other equipment at all? That's actually already grotesque. It's enough, but it's an image that we actually see very often. I don't think it's due to a lack of supplies. I'm pretty sure he owns a weapon and most likely also a plate carrier or something similar. But just the fact that he doesn't take them with him, that's really his own fault. I strongly assume that it's due to a lack of training or training that didn't last long, that people just leave their weapons somewhere in position and walk around without it. Or maybe it's due to a naive view if you just assume you won't get hit. Drones now fly through the sky like birds and often get quite close. Act fast if you have a weapon. The drone is quick, agile, and deadly. So if it's still at a distance, try to shoot it down. If you hit it when it's near a soldier, he's likely already in the drone's range. So shooting and causing it to explode will still get you hit. Here, people usually aim for the drone's rotors with thrown objects or sticks, avoiding the detonator to prevent an explosion. And you try to make the drone fall to the ground, hoping that it might not explode on impact. We've seen that happen many times, sometimes successfully, sometimes not, with different outcomes. But what we haven't seen so far is what this Russian soldier is trying here. He's trying to fight the drone with a live grenade and throws it after it, right in front of his feet. You can probably already guess the result, or you can watch it on my Telegram channel. We're again seeing rising Russian supply shortages. As I said, an army's fate depends on its logistics. What good are the best tanks without fuel or the best soldiers without food? They're obviously useless. They have to experience this firsthand here as well, while complaining about coming from the first world and still having to drink such dirty water. I also wonder why they don't just melt the snow, but I assume they can't or aren't allowed to leave their spot. And that becomes really dangerous in some areas because of the current drone situation. Right now, it's still the case that we hardly see any progress at the front on either side. When we do see something, it's only a few meters of ground, as we just saw at Shachov. Because the village has been contested for about a week and a half now, and we're talking about a village with 1 or 2 dozen houses, so not really much, and most of them have already been destroyed anyway. But right now there are more and more extremely strange videos like the ones we've just seen. And with that, I'd like to thank all subscribers, members, and the Allguy crew. Special thanks to Lieutenant Colonel Renica, Robert Ziller, Dietrich, Freddie, and Mehrhofer. Like, subscribe, comment, and see you in the next report.